The morning sun poured like gold through the towering glass windows of Aerostar Industries, one of the world's most prestigious aviation companies. Inside, the halls gleamed with polished marble, and the soft hum of ambition filled the air. Engineers in sleek suits rushed about, clutching blueprints, tablets, and coffee cups, preparing for yet another day under the rule of their bold and beautiful CEO, Victoria Hale. Victoria was known as the Iron Angel. Sharp-minded, stunning, and unstoppable, she had inherited her father's company at just 28. Now 32, she'd turned it into a billion-dollar empire known for designing cutting-edge aircraft and luxury helicopters. But Victoria had one flaw: she judged people too quickly. Especially those who didn't seem important. That morning, as she walked into the hangar in her tailored white suit, her heels clicked like a metronome of power. She was there to inspect the new prototype, the V-9 Falcon, a helicopter so advanced it could hover silently, fly at jet-like speeds, and land on water. The engineering team was proud, and all eyes were on Victoria. "Good morning, Miss Hale," said Daniel, the head engineer, handing her a tablet. "We've completed the diagnostics, but the control system still needs calibration." "We're just—" Victoria cut him off. "I didn't ask for excuses, Daniel. I asked if it can fly." Daniel swallowed. "Not yet, ma'am. We're working on it." Victoria rolled her eyes. "You've had 6 months and millions of dollars. If this thing doesn't fly today, none of you will have a job tomorrow." A tense silence fell. Even the air seemed to hold its breath. Then, from behind a stack of crates, a low voice said, "Maybe it's not the machine that's the problem, maybe it's the hands controlling it." Everyone turned. The voice belonged to Ethan Cole, the janitor. He stood there, holding a mop in one hand, a bucket beside him. His uniform was faded, but his eyes, sharp, calm, and confident, were anything but ordinary. Victoria frowned. "Excuse me? Did you just speak to me?" Ethan nodded, unfazed. "Yes, ma'am. I just meant, sometimes even the best machine can fail if it's misunderstood." A few engineers snickered. Victoria crossed her arms, clearly amused. "You think you understand more than my entire engineering team?" Ethan shrugged. "Not more. Just, differently." Victoria raised an eyebrow. "Oh? And what exactly do you do differently, Mr. Cole?" he replied simply. "Ethan Cole. And I clean up after geniuses." Laughter erupted across the hangar. But Victoria didn't laugh. Something about the way he said it, calm, almost poetic, made her pause. She stepped closer, her heels echoing. "Tell me, Mr. Cole," she said. "If you're such an expert, why don't you show us how you'd fix it?" Ethan smiled faintly. "If I could touch that bird," he said, nodding toward the V-9 Falcon, "I'd have her flying before sunset." Gasps. Whispers. Even Daniel looked shocked. "Ma'am. This is ridiculous. He's a janitor." Victoria smirked. "A janitor who can fly a helicopter? That's the most entertaining thing I've heard all week." She crossed her arms, eyes sparkling with mockery. "Fine. Let's make it interesting." She leaned forward and said the words that would change everything. "Fly this helicopter, and I'll marry you." The entire hangar went silent. Even the sound of the fan seemed to fade away. Ethan froze for a moment, then looked her dead in the eye. "Is that a promise, Miss Hale?" Victoria laughed. "If you can make it fly, sure. I'll marry you right here in this hangar. But when you fail," she looked around, smirking, "you'll mop every corner of this place twice a day for the rest of your life." The engineers erupted in laughter again. Cameras came out. Someone started recording. "This is going to be gold for the company group chat," one of them whispered. But Ethan didn't seem humiliated. He just put his mop aside, walked toward the helicopter, and gently ran his hand over its metal body. Machines, he murmured, almost to himself, aren't about control. They're about trust. Victoria raised an eyebrow, half amused, half intrigued. What are you doing? Listening, Ethan replied softly. She's telling me what's wrong. A few engineers chuckled. This guy's crazy, one said. But Ethan ignored them. He crouched near the landing skids, inspected the hydraulic lines, then climbed into the cockpit with a calm confidence that stunned everyone. His hands moved swiftly, adjusting controls, testing switches. Then, to everyone's shock, the V9's engine roared to life. The floor vibrated. Lights flickered. The rotors began to spin with a deep, steady thrum. Daniel ran forward. Wait, that's impossible. We disengaged the main controller. Ethan looked down calmly. You disengaged it wrong. He flicked another switch, adjusted the torque lever, and the helicopter lifted 6 inches off the ground. Gasps filled the air. People backed away as the V9 hovered gracefully, perfectly balanced. Victoria's eyes widened in disbelief. What, how are you? Ethan didn't answer. He lowered the helicopter gently, then stepped out as if he'd just parked a car. The hangar was dead silent. Then Ethan looked at her with a calm smile. You said if I made it fly. The color drained from Victoria's face. I didn't mean literally. Ethan chuckled. Then maybe you shouldn't make promises you don't understand. She glared at him, but something deep inside her, pride, curiosity, admiration, began to stir. Who are you? She demanded. Ethan picked up his mop again. Just a janitor, ma'am. And with that, he walked away, leaving behind a stunned CEO, a silent crowd, and a helicopter that finally obeyed its master. The morning after the test flight, a strange tension filled Aerostar Industries. Rumors had spread like wildfire. The janitor made the Falcon fly. Engineers whispered in corners. Managers avoided Victoria. Eyes. Everyone wanted to know what would happen next. But Victoria Hale wasn't just a CEO, she was a woman obsessed with control. And control was something Ethan Cole had somehow taken from her without even trying. From her office window, she watched him sweeping the hangar floor, calm, methodical, as though yesterday's miracle hadn't happened at all. No pride. No arrogance. Just a man doing his job, as if the world hadn't just witnessed him achieve the impossible. Victoria clenched her jaw. What is he hiding? She whispered. Her assistant, Claire, entered softly. Ma'am, the press is asking about the flight. They want to know who the pilot was. Should I? Tell them nothing, Victoria snapped. Then she paused. Actually, tell them we'll show them. Claire blinked. Show them? Victoria's lips curled into a smile. We'll hold a live demonstration tomorrow. The Falcon will fly again. And this time, I'll see what our janitor is really capable of. That evening, the hangar glowed under golden floodlights. Ethan was mopping quietly when Victoria approached, her heels echoing across the metal floor. Mr. Cole, she said. You're flying tomorrow. Ethan looked up. I thought your engineers had that handled. They don't, she said flatly. You do. The world's going to see what you can do. Ethan set the mop aside. And if I refuse? Victoria smiled, that confident, challenge-loving smile that had intimidated every man she'd ever met. Then maybe I'll tell the press who you really are, Captain Cole. He froze. Slowly, he looked at her. You dug into my past. She met his gaze. I had to. People like you don't just end up cleaning hangars. Ethan sighed. Then you know I don't belong in a cockpit anymore. Victoria crossed her arms. I also know you saved 12 lives that day, and lost your career because of it. That's not failure, that's leadership. Ethan turned away. You wouldn't understand. Try me, she challenged. He stopped, then said quietly, you want the truth? The mission that ended my career wasn't an accident. I was ordered to abandon my team midair, but I stayed. I disobeyed. And when the helicopter crashed, they pinned it all on me. His voice tightened. I still hear their screams. Silence filled the hangar. Victoria's voice softened. You lost more than your wings, didn't you? He nodded once. Everything. For a long moment, they stood there, two people from different worlds, bound by invisible pain. Finally, Victoria said, then fly again. Not for them. Not for me. For yourself. Ethan met her eyes. And for the first time, he saw something real in them, not arrogance, not power, but belief. Fine, he said. But if I do this, I do it my way. The next day, reporters, investors, and aviation experts filled the Aerostar hangar. Cameras flashed. The world was watching. Victoria stepped on stage, dressed in silver gray, confident, composed. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, today, you. A mechanical fault flashed across the control screen. One of the stabilizers had malfunctioned. The Falcon began to tremble midair. Ethan! Victoria shouted. Land it. Now! But Ethan didn't panic. His hands moved with lightning precision, rerouting power, stabilizing torque. The helicopter steadied, hovered again, and then landed softly, perfectly. The entire hangar exploded in applause. Reporters rushed forward. Cameras surrounded him. Victoria stood frozen, tears glimmering in her eyes. Ethan stepped out, his face calm but his voice quiet. That wasn't part of the plan, he said softly. You've got a faulty stabilizer module. I'd replace it before the next test. Victoria shook her head in disbelief. You just saved us millions, and maybe my reputation. He smiled faintly. I didn't do it for you. She blinked. Then why? For the machine, he said. And for the people who believe it can do more. Something inside her shifted, pride melting into admiration, and admiration slowly transforming into something deeper. Later that night, Victoria found him sitting alone by the helipad, gazing up at the stars. The hangar lights glowed behind them, but his eyes were somewhere far away. Do you ever miss it? She asked, sitting beside him. He smiled. Flying? Every day. Then why stop? He looked at her. Because when you lose people up there, part of you never comes down. Victoria was silent. Then, quietly, she said, you didn't just make the Falcon fly, Ethan. You made me believe again. He turned to her, surprised. In what? In second chances. The air between them was still, charged. For a long moment, they just looked at each other, the CEO who thought she had everything, and the janitor who'd already lost it all. Then Victoria smiled faintly. I believe I owe you something. Ethan chuckled. What's that? She looked him straight in the eyes. A promise. He froze. You mean? I said if you could make it fly, she said softly, stepping closer. And you did. For once, the woman who controlled empires didn't look powerful, she looked human. Vulnerable. Real. Ethan's heart pounded. Victoria, you don't have to. I want to, she whispered. Then, as the wind from the helipad brushed their faces, Victoria Hale, the CEO who mocked him, leaned in and kissed the man she once called just a janitor.